If you took a step back and looked at 2016's year of gaming, it'd be pretty easy to write it off as subpar. From Mafia 3's broken mess of a PC port to Mirror's Edge Catalyst's quickly forgotten about release. Hell, No Man's Sky may go down as the industry's biggest flop. With Mighty No. 9 almost single-handedly ruining the reputation of Kickstarter games, and Bethesda shaking the confidence of everyone with their new policy on game review copies, 2016 can look a bit dire if you focus on the biggest stories. Unfortunately, negative news sells better than the positive side, so all the good that came out is easily swept away, not letting how truly fantastic this previous year has been shine through. We were treated to a new rendition of Doom, which is quickly becoming my favorite shooter of all time. Titanfall 2, which saw EA remind the industry how a AAA shooter campaign should be made. Final Fantasy XV, The Last Guardian, and Owlboy, 3 games that seem to be stuck in development hell, were all released, and with solid praise considering the hype that built around them. And of course, not to mention one of the strongest lineups of indie games to date, with Hyper Light Drifter, Momodora, Firewatch, Enter the Gungeon, and Stardew Valley, just to name a few. Every year, indie release schedules get stronger, and this year was no exception. Just like last year, I won't be talking about the best indie games that came out in 2016, nor the most obscure, just shedding light on some of the ones I enjoyed and don't think got enough love. Stories: The Path of Destinies has one of the most interesting approaches to storytelling I've seen in any game. Unfolding in a storybook aesthetic, it bookends each chapter in a choose-your-own-adventure style decision. Getting to the end of each story contained within the game is only part of the whole tale. Each path you choose to take offers a new perspective into the mind of Ronaldo, the protagonist, and how he deals with friendship, ultimate power, and love. There are plenty of unique twists and turns to be found, that each time around gives you a new piece of this puzzle, with newly acquired knowledge on how to act and who to trust, which really makes it feel like you gain control of the story after a couple of plays. The book aesthetic has bled into every part of this game's presentation, and feels incredibly strong because of it. Flipping pages as you reach a new chapter, washing out colours and flattening to a 2D perspective of each scene. Every character feels wholly their own, seeing how everyone changes as you dictate story beats based on previous playthroughs really feels like nothing else I've experienced. While the combat is unfortunately nothing to write home about, giving players an Arkham-style combat with dodges, parries, and special abilities to be gained over time, the rest of the game functions well enough that getting to the end multiple times doesn't feel like a huge ordeal, but it would have been nicer if some more interesting combat was there. The characters, being a sky pirate, and the adventure book setting all make this a must play.
Furi is the latest attempt at a bosses only game, and while we've seen some that are great and some that are not so great, I can definitely recommend checking this one out. The different bosses in this game are guardians of a prison that you're trying to escape, and they all have varied personalities as well as exciting and distinctive battles. You'll go from fighting an old man with headphones that protects himself with barriers, to a chick with a sniper rifle wanting to play a game of cat and mouse, to a straight up ninja master wanting to duel. All of the locations you'll visit are wildly diverse and quite pretty to look at, and it's got an incredible soundtrack to boot. But above all, Furi excels in its gameplay. These fights are ruthlessly hard and a long test of endurance. While this can be frustrating if you die near the end and have to start over, it makes each battle an ordeal and extremely accomplishing when you're victorious. You'll go through many different phases, dodging melee attacks, energy waves, and sometimes hundreds of bullets. Yep, this is pretty much a combo of bullet hell arenas and satisfying sword fights. And I mean, just look at this! It's total chaos and so hype. Now, you have a few different options of how to tackle these phases. You can shoot with your gun, and some bosses will require you to do so, or you can slice them down with your sword. You can also dodge to move lightning quick and avoid damage, and parry when a foe is about to attack you. If they flash white, you can strike back, and not only will it defend against an oncoming hit, but it will also heal back some of your health. It feels like you have a full arsenal of moves to use in fighting these guys, and you need to choose the best way to take them down. It's the kind of game where you get better and more efficient the longer you play, and if you start over, you can cream the bosses that gave you a hard time originally, and it feels pretty great. On top of all this, Furi has multiple endings, a speedrun mode, and a harder difficulty called Furier, where all the bosses have completely different patterns. So there's quite a bit to hold your attention, and it was certainly one of my favorite experiences of 2016.
Potentially one of the better known titles on this list, VA11 Hall A, or more casually Valhalla, is a dialogue-driven game released to warm critical reception in June of this year. The game puts you in the role of Jill, a bartender living in the cyberpunk dystopia Glitch City, and follows her interactions with a diverse cast of characters who come in for drinks, refuge, conversation. It all draws heavily from visual novel and science fiction aesthetics, but it's been noted over and over that it adds up to more than the sum of its parts. It's worth checking out if you have a preference for any of its external elements, but it is well constructed enough to stand alone as a work rather than just existing as a contribution to a niche. Despite its veneer and the developer's tongue-in-cheek reiteration of the game as waifu bartending, no characters are romanceable in what I think is kind of a refreshing choice, to be honest. Dating sims are fucking great, but Valhalla lets you experience the story without worrying about quantifying your standing with the characters. This seems considered along with a couple of other design choices like the lack of a time limit for mixing drinks, and they all kind of work in service of making the game very inviting and comfortable. If you're drawn to dialogue-heavy games, then this is a treat. The plot is non-linear and made up of many moving parts. I only really found out after my playthrough that certain events are random. It astounds me that the pacing seemed to hold up so strongly despite the story being so dynamic. In fact, everything is pretty good. Let me butcher this in my New Zealand accent. Garode, or Garode, composed an excellent soundtrack of 80s retro future synth jukebox tracks. The visuals are great, neon pixel art reminiscent of early 90s PC-98 games. The setting is a joy to discover, and the characters are vibrant and thoughtful. It's Game of the Year material for sure, but certainly polarizing here and there. Try it out. The game's getting a re-release soon, including a remastered version of the early access prologue from before the game's official release.
Between Me and the Night is a surreal adventure through the mind of a boy left home alone. Sitting somewhere between point-and-click adventure game and action-adventure, the game flips between the two as you deal with darkness and the madness that comes with loneliness. While I don't play that many point-and-click games, not for a disinterest in the genre, more because I'm generally awful at them, everything accumulated into an experience that forced me past that barrier to see it through to the end. It does hold some of the tedium of what items to use where, but if you pay close enough attention, there are some subtle context clues on how to continue. Between Me and the Night deals with a lot of issues that I hold close to me, and really felt like a personal experience despite the lack of almost any dialogue, only lightly using text boxes and some clever answering machine messages. While playing, I got a sense of nostalgia for things I didn't even know I had nostalgia for, capturing the emotions and feelings of dealing with the demons we can face while home alone, all while managing to perfectly capture the mind of a child in the 80s through its style and imagery. All of this isn't to say it's a perfect game, but the combat parts where you take control of a night between scenes fit in with the themes. The fighting leaves a lot to be desired, however the sections are fairly short, beautifully animated, and serve the purpose they're meant to well enough that it isn't a hindrance. I've been avoiding taking a deeper dive into Between Me and the Night because I do think it's an experience that needs to be seen as blindly as possible, which is why I'm showing only moments from the first act. Between Me and the Night is a short, beautiful, touching, and powerful game that should be on everyone's to-play list. 2016 continued the trend of an upward climb for the indie game scene in terms of quantity and overall quality of releases, and I'm excited to think what's around the corner in 2017. While it's easy to get swept up in negative hype and get disappointed by some releases, remember there are always new games waiting for you to find. Thanks to Sam and Snoman for helping me out with this year's list, and I hope you'll be checking some or all of these games out, and let me know your secret indie game you think no one else played this year.